a student gets denied, first thing is understand it's not there's nothing wrong with you. I know I've seen students that, feel like that's just the worst thing can ever happen. And it is so important. I understand that, but I encourage a student, if they do get a denial letter, to take it with a grain of salt, and realize that it's as much about being accepted has a lot to do with fit, and it doesn't mean you're not a good person, you're not qualified. So please don't get too down on yourself. Although it's natural, I understand it. I've received those myself, so I understand that. But don't let it get you down. Being denied is just that. It means the application is denied. And again, if a student is denied, I know it can be an emotional smackdown there, and I've experienced that myself, and I understand that it's easy to get down, but I encourage students to keep their heads up, and one denial, a couple denials, that's not the end of the world, and it doesn't reflect poorly on you as an individual. I think sometimes we think, if, oh, I didn't get admitted, I must not be that good of a student, but don't think that way. It just, denials happen, and just take that and move on. A deferral, on the other hand, means that the final decision on your acceptance or not is being deferred to a later time. So it's kind of like a second chance. So there's some advantage to that. Again, the application is still being considered. And if you do receive a deferral, you have an opportunity to improve your likelihood of getting accepted. You can update if you retake some tests and your scores go up, or if you receive an award or something like that, you can put that in there and update your application. And probably you will know why you're being deferred. And in the deferral letter you get, there'll probably be some information that says you're deferred pending ABC. So it's very important to understand what the deferral is based on, and do everything you can to update or fix that. Maybe it's an incomplete application. Again, maybe they're waiting on second test scores or something along those lines, but it's important to understand what that is. And if you don't receive that information, you just find out that your application is deferred, but you don't know why, it's all right to reach out to the admissions office and ask them for the reason for the deferral, and ask what your next steps are. And if you do that, I highly encourage you to have the tone of, hey, I am still very interested. What are my next steps? Instead of contacting them and letting them know how disappointed you are that you didn't get accepted. So remember, even that response can be taken into account in further decisions. So you want to be positive and say, hey, I received this deferral notice and I'm still very interested. What are my next steps? What can I do to move my application forward? I served on a faculty review committee in which the admissions department at the college I worked at the time, they assembled a group of faculty to review applications that were kind of borderline, or in that borderline area where the applicants had several strong points, but a couple of other points that kept the overall application kind of on the borderline. So to give those students the best opportunity for being accepted, this committee was formed, and I sat on that. And some of the reasons, or some of the issues we found were that sometimes students, they're taking college prep classes and then they kind of tapered off maybe their senior year. Or a couple of the big ones, the two I really want to talk about are the overall GPA may just be on the borderline, but maybe just the sophomore year had the GPA on the sophomore year was low, and that brought the whole thing down. So that's one example. And in a situation like that, what can a student do about that? Well, that's where the essay comes in. For example, I read numerous applications where you'd see one bad semester or one bad year in terms of a very low GPA that brought the whole overall high school GPA down, and there are very good reasons for that. Some students encountered serious illnesses in their family, maybe a parent or a sibling became deathly ill, and they had to help care for them, or the passing of a father or mother, or somebody close, a sibling, situations like that. Or maybe the student was involved in an accident. I remember one of those cases where a student had been in a car accident, and that they were in the hospital and in rehab for quite a while. So that really took a toll on their GPA. So the fact that we see that dip in the GPA over a finite time, if that can be explained, that'll help the admissions folks make a decision. The other thing, and I think this is very important for scholarship applications, for college applications, for job applications, and that is sometimes a student's GPA may not totally reflect their ability, or may not accurately reflect their ability. Now, I think most students feel that way. I always did. I thought, my GPA probably a little better than I'm probably a little more capable than my GPA shows. But the point I want to make is, if there are reasons why your GPA may not reflect your ability, it's important to touch on that. So, for example, oftentimes students have to work. And if you can document that, I've written a lot of recommendation letters for students over the years, and I'd put that in my recommendation letter that, this student needed to work 40 hours a week on top of going to school because they needed to support themselves or their family. And certainly a student that's working that much, it's not surprising that their grades aren't maybe as high as they could otherwise be. But instead of that being a detriment, meaning that, this GPA is too low, that actually can be more of a positive by showing the work ethic and the responsibility there. So I would encourage students, if there are reasons for a GPA being like it is, not just, I like to sleep a lot, so I didn't study, that doesn't count. But if there's a legitimate reason why your ability is not accurately reflected in your grades, then you should address that. And similarly, I've seen a lot of these situations on college applications again, and I've written this into recommendation letters. It's not uncommon to see a student with good grades but no extracurricular activities, or very, very little extracurricular activity. And certainly in college applications, scholarship applications, job applications, the reviewers want to see these extracurricular activities that we've discussed earlier. In my experience has been, many students have not taken advantage of those extracurricular activities or leadership development experiences, again, because of work. And that's so important to put that in there. And even when you get into college and you're applying for scholarships and internships and jobs, it's very important to say that, I work 20 hours a week to help support myself through college. Or in high school, again, I work 20 hours a week to help support my family. And that should be a positive. Try to put a positive spin on that. And what I mean by that is that, well, I couldn't be in clubs like everybody else because I had to work. No, that's a negative spin. A positive spin would be, I worked 20 to 30 hours a week all through high school in order to help support my family. And due to the time I spent working, I was not able to engage in the extracurricular activities to the level that I would have liked to. So again, it's all about just explaining the reason why. If there's an apparent weakness in the application, it's just important to explain that honestly. Again, we don't want to make stuff up. We want to be legitimate. But if there are some legitimate issues that come into play, as I've just outlined, then it's certainly important to articulate those in a positive way on applications.